Yo, what's up, sports bettors? I got 10 player props for you on PrizePicks, No House Advantage, and Underdog Fantasy. So yesterday we had a big cash, 3 for 3 on Underdog Fantasy, but back to the drawing board today, looking for value. And obviously you want to include this player prop. So PrizePicks is running a promo. They're taking Curry's points line down to 0.5. So if Curry scores at least 1 point, your bet's going to win. So of course you want to include this in a PrizePicks entry that you go with. Curry over half of a point. But anyways, let's go ahead. Let's look for value on all these platforms. And typically the tool I start out on is the positive EV tool on OddsJam. So what's interesting about, PrizePicks, No House Advantage, I've explained this in other videos, but these are fixed payout platforms. So on No House Advantage, if you go 5 for 5, you get a 12x payout. If you go 4 for 5, you get a 2.6x payout. Right? These payouts are fixed. Doesn't matter if I take unders, overs, we're always getting the same payout. Doesn't matter if I switch this for a different pick, we're always getting the exact same payout. And PrizePicks works in the same way, so both of these are fixed payout platforms. Right? So what you can do is you can essentially reverse engineer their payouts, and what you're going to end up seeing is all you got to do to beat No House Advantage, so all you got to do to win on these 5-pick entries is you need to win at least 53.227% of your player props. So in other words, of these over-unders you're selecting, you got to hit over 53.227%. Right? That's how you beat No House Advantage long term. If you can win your player props just like this, over under 21.5 games, over 53.227% of the time, you're going to be profitable on NHA. Right? So what No House Advantage assumes is, most people, they don't have an edge, they don't have an advantage, is most people can only select their over-unders correctly about 50% of the time. So if that's the case, you're going to have an ROI of negative 22% on No House Advantage. So what No House Advantage is banking on is you can't get your win rate above 53.227%. So how do we find player prop bets that are winning over 53.227% of the time? That's the question. And the first tool I use to find value on No House Advantage is right here. It's called the positive EV tool, right? So what this tool does is it just reads in all these lines from, No House Advantage, soccer lines, tennis lines, whatever, MLB, MMA. It reads in everything, and it just shows you spots where sportsbooks have one side heavily favored. So in the case of Eduardo Rodriguez, all the sportsbooks have his over 4.5 Ks, his over 4.5 strikeouts, heavily favored. So this is a profitable bet on No House Advantage to go with, right? Just straight off the positive EV tool, just following the data, looking for value, right? All the sportsbooks, FanDuel, Caesars, DraftKings, Bet Online, Pinnacle, which is known to be the sharpest sportsbook in the world, all these books, right? They have Rodriguez's over, heavily favored. I say this a lot, but you gotta treat every sports book as a data point, right? That's how sharp bettors think. You treat every sports book as a data point on where the line should be set. And we know on No House Advantage, we broke down the payouts. We know to be profitable on NHA, all we got to do is win at least 53.227% of our picks. So what you want to do is just find spots. You want to find 5 picks where sportsbooks have one side heavily favored. And here you can see you have various data points, numerous data points. Every sportsbook telling you the same thing. Hey, Rodriguez, he's a lot more likely to go over as opposed to under, right? So this is a sharp player prop bet to go with on PrizePicks. On No House Advantage. We'll get to PrizePicks here in a second. But long story short, this shouldn't be surprising, right? So if you look at the Nuggets-Suns game, right, the Nuggets are the favored team. They're minus 140 odds, minus 158 on FanDuel. So the sportsbooks are telling you the Nuggets are the favored team. One of these teams is going to win this game. So the market, right, the data in the market is telling you, the Nuggets are over 50% to win this game. The Nuggets are more likely to win this game. And you can quantify that mathematically with a no-vig odds calculator, right? So what this calculator does is it takes a sportsbook's market and then tells you the win probability for the favored team and the non-favored team. So we know the Nuggets are favored, right? They're minus 158 on FanDuel, so we know they're over 50% to win. But what is the exact probability? Is you can take this market on FanDuel. They're giving you the Suns at plus 132, so the Suns are the underdog. They're going to be less than 50% to win. The Nuggets are minus 158. So according to a no-vig odds calculator, according to FanDuel's market, the odds they're putting out, the Nuggets are 58.69% to win this game, right? We know the Nuggets are the favored team, but we can quantify that mathematically. So in the case of Rodriguez, Pinnacle, the sharpest bookmaker in the world, they have his over 4.5 strikeouts as the favored outcome. So that's the more likely outcome. It's minus 143 odds. They have the under at plus 107. So based on the fact that they have the over juiced all the way up to minus 143, according to Pinnacle, right? According to Pinnacle's market, right? Their model, the sharpest sportsbook in the world, how much they have their lines juiced, this play is 54.92% to win, right? Which is above 53.22, so it's going to be profitable in a no house advantage entry. So long story short, when you're using OddsJam, I mean, it really does, if you don't care about the math, you don't care about the strategy, no vig odds, whatever, all you want to do is you want to find these bets in green and in bold, and you want to take them, right? And it's all just using data, sportsbook odds, right? All of my picks on Underdog Fantasy, whatever plays I'm giving out, like, I'm never just like, oh, I'm betting this because my gut said to. That's BS, right? 99.9% of sports bettors, they trust their gut, right? And that's why they all lose money. That's why the books are in business, because people think they can outsmart the data, they can outsmart the market, when just in reality, that's not true. So for Corbin Burns, all the books have his under heavily favored, right? So we're just following the data. We know no house advantage. They're not changing our payouts if we switch all our picks to unders versus overs. So we want to look for spots where sports books are telling us, yo, one side's heavily favored. And for Corbin Burns, all the books are saying he's a lot more likely to go under as opposed to over. Bet Online has his under at minus 143, Caesars minus 149, DraftKings minus 125. All the books have his under heavily favored. This is a sharp player prop bet to go with in your no house advantage entry. So let's just go through my no house advantage entry, and then we'll flip over to PrizePicks. So I got Hill under 4.5 strikeouts, Bryant over 1.5 bases. So you're going to notice these plays are just right from the EV tool, right? The bet in bold and in green. You can also see there's some value on FanDuel. You know, Dodgers first half money line. So it's not like this tool only works for PrizePicks and no house advantage. It works for regular sports books as well. So Hill under 4.5 Ks. Chris Bryant over 1.5 bases, right? So just following the data. So this is the first tool I use to find a lot of my player props for Underdog Fantasy, No House Advantage, these different platforms. But I also use the fantasy screen. So you just go here to fantasy screen, and this tool works in a pretty similar way. So you're going to see there's overlap with the positive EV tool. Is all it's doing is it's using sportsbook odds, right? And then it just tells you the win probability for your bet, right? So we know we got to win over 53.227% of our picks on No House Advantage to be profitable long term, right? If you're winning 55% of your bets, your over-unders on No House Advantage, your ROI is going to be 14% long term. There's no BS here. I'm literally just breaking down the payouts of No House Advantage. So long story short, what this fantasy screen shows you is just plays where sportsbooks have one side heavily favored. So for Alex Call in the Nationals game, all the books have him to not score a run, his under half of a run, heavily favored, right? All the books are telling you, yo, his under's more likely. For Corbin Burns, we just saw that play on the positive EV tool, right? For Corbin Burns, all the sports books, so if you look right here, all the sports books have his under 6.5 strikeouts favored. So this just quantifies for you, and it tells you your exact win probability. So you just want to take all these picks in green because they're all winning over 53.227% of the time, so they're all profitable player props to include in your entry, right? For Rich Hill, all the sports books have his under 4.5 strikeouts heavily favored, around like minus 135 odds. Sharp player prop bet to include in your entry. So my final play on No House Advantage, Rich Hill under 4.5 Ks, Alex Call, no runs, Rodriguez over 4.5 Ks, Burns under 6.5 Ks, Bryant over 1.5 bases. So that's what I got first, and then I went over to PrizePicks, and I did the same thing, right? I looked for value on PrizePicks using this fantasy screen. So PrizePicks is a bit different, right? They have slightly worse payouts, actually, than No House Advantage. Right? So they have slightly worse payouts. So long story short, on No House Advantage, if you reverse engineer, you know, how their payouts work, you got to win 53.227% of your plays to be profitable, right? So on PrizePicks, it's higher. It's 54.25%, right? So it's a little bit higher on PrizePicks. You got to win slightly higher percentage of your player props to be profitable long term. And again, this is all done just taking the PrizePicks payouts and backing out, okay, we know PrizePicks, it's a fixed payout platform. It doesn't matter what 5 picks I select, I'm always getting the same payout, right? Doesn't matter if you take overs or unders. So what does my win probability have to be profitable? And on PrizePicks, it's 54.25%. So long story short, you just use the EV tool again. Brito over 3.5 strikeouts. All the sports books have Brito's over, right? All the sports books have his over pretty heavily favored, around like -140. So he's a lot more likely to go over as opposed to under in the Yankees game. So that's a sharp player prop bet to include. And again, you definitely want to include that promo on Curry. So I got Curry over 0.5 point, no runs, first inning. We got Strider on the mound. In the Mets-Braves game, Corbin Burns under 6.5 Ks. I mean, literally just ripping plays. I always followed the data straight off the fantasy screen. Right, so Braves-Mets, all books have the Nerfy, the no runs first inning, pretty heavily favored, around like -140. That's a sharp bet to include in your PrizePicks entry. Brito over 3.5 Ks, Hagel under 2.5 shots on goal, right? All these bets in green. Don't want to play the plays in red because they're not winning above 54.25%. So you got to make sure there's enough juice, right, towards one side for your play to be profitable. So this is what I went with on PrizePicks for my promo entry. 10 total player props. One is really easy, obviously, Curry to score a point. Obviously, that's a pretty easy one. But regardless, hopefully this video was helpful. Let's make money.